By far the most common question I receive is, how can I be happier? And there are two ways we can do this. The first one is to maintain a high frequency of experience. And the other one is to become proficient in declining the low frequency emotions. So the way we maintain a high frequency of experience is through having a sense of love, appreciation, gratitude, and high frequency emotions for our life as it exists right here and now. So even if we're having a tough time, there are certain elements that we can actually be appreciative of. So for instance, the fact that we are the eternal infinite being is probably the most important one to be appreciative of, because that never changes. And so even though we may be experiencing things on an individual level, our true nature is not affected by any of that. And then even if we're working really hard, there will be some time when we can rest and we can just be appreciative of that time. We can be appreciative of the people around us. We can be appreciative of knowledge that we can discover, and really just becoming consciously aware that life is a frequency-based game. So if we have a sense of gratitude, then that gratitude begins to establish a frequency. So just having a sense of appreciation for everything around us, where we live, our family, friends, and anything where there's a level of appreciation, just even the simplest things. And obviously, complaining creates a lower frequency. So it's easy to see or find people where complaining is the dominant frequency. And we can see from that example just that really that's not a very desirable place to be, because there's more and more reason to be complaining if we find that frequency. So creating a high frequency is available to everyone. And it's really just a matter of maintaining that and creating a level of consciousness in the way we live. Not to be artificial, but just to be able to have genuine appreciation. Being authentic is the key. So just by continuing in that way, it may take a little while, but gradually we will raise the frequency of experience, and that frequency then begins to predominate. And the benefit of a higher frequency of experience is that any lower frequency invitations become much more noticeable, because if our general frame of mind is one of peacefulness, ease, tranquility, appreciation, love, gratitude, then if we get an invitation into a lower frequency, then it's almost like a little alarm going off. And so it's saying to us, are you sure you want to go there? And really that's the way to treat the lower frequencies. We may have been conditioned into experiencing things in a particular way. So maybe people we know, we've seen them demonstrate certain behaviors. There are lots of examples in the media, and people emulate characters in that way. And that's really something to be very aware of, because the low frequency emotions are always invitations. And the reason for that is because we're the infinite being. The infinite being is totally stable. And what your true nature is peace, tranquility, timelessness. And because that predominates, any frequency other than that is something which on some level we're actually consenting to or have consented to. And some people feel that there are lots of subconscious programs and concepts of limitation to deal with, but actually that's just an idea that we can subscribe to. Some people believe that there's a mountain of karma we have to deal with. But all of these concepts are part of the content of the human experience, the human game. And so there is no mountain. There aren't any concepts of limitation which we have, that are really solid in our experience, because our true nature is timeless being. So we're only existing in this very moment. And therefore, anything that is experienced on a lower frequency is because in this very moment, we're accepting the invitation into that frequency. But it's actually possible to decline those invitations. So for instance, if someone has a tendency to have experiences of depression, there may be a predominant frequency in that respect. And if we have experienced a frequency of depression previously, it's because we've accepted the invitation into that frequency. And all of the emotions, all the low frequency emotions, actually drain our energy field, and all the high frequency emotions enhance it. So that's a really important thing to realize, because all the emotions are only fueled by our own energy field. And all humans have experienced low frequency emotions at some stage. And we're all familiar with the feeling of being quite drained emotionally and energetically if we've accepted the invitation into one of those. So it's a matter of becoming really conscious, because if there are predominant frequencies, so there's a frequency of depression, then we've agreed to enter into that experience at some time in the past. And it's usually because there's some conditioning, that we have subscribed to, the idea that if this happens, then this is how I'm going to feel. But actually, it's possible when we become really conscious to remain balanced and neutral throughout all of life's content. So even if there are experiences like bereavement or loss of some sort or ill health, they don't automatically mean that we need to go into low frequency emotions. We can maintain our true status, our infinite status, and just remain balanced. And it does take a little while to achieve that, but the more we become familiar with it and realize it is possible, then we can do that. So these emotions have frequencies, and they're delivered to us as frequencies. And if there's a common frequency, then it's very specific in the way the invitations are delivered. So taking the example of depression, if somebody has had an experience of depression in the past, then the experience that is presented to us, and it can come to us in many different ways. So it could be something through the post, it could be an email, it could be an image on a computer screen, it could be a conversation on the telephone, it could be meeting someone. There are so many different ways the invitations can be delivered. But when we know our predominant frequency, it's being alert to one of those being delivered. And so if there's a tendency towards depression, for instance, there could be a feeling that a particular experience will trigger depression. And if we're alert to the possibility of that invitation coming, then as it comes, we can begin to learn how to decline that invitation. And it's really a matter of just being alert and watching it coming towards us and not identifying with it, because identifying with a low frequency emotion is a form of consent. We're consenting to enter into that lower frequency. Whereas if we just observe it and we just realize that it's an option, then we can actually decline the invitation. In the same way as, someone might invite you to a birthday party, and it may be somebody who you don't feel too compatible with. if that's the case, we can just politely decline the invitation. And it's the same with the frequencies, the emotional frequencies. We can decline those also. And as they become clearer and we understand the mechanics of how it works, then the invitations become weaker gradually. So the first one could be quite strong because we've accepted the previous invitation, but then the second one will be weaker. And then the third one will be even weaker. And usually by about the fourth one, if we've declined the previous ones, the invitations actually cease. And that's really the place to be, because as we can look at life and we can say, well, there are going to be experiences I'm going to have to deal with in life. There can be experiences of bereavement, there can be experiences of loss, there can be challenging experiences. And if we've decided beforehand that we're going to process them in a way where we maintain neutrality, then that's really the option we can exercise. And it's actually, whatever the situation is, by maintaining a sense of neutrality and stability, it's much easier, and our actions will be much more effective in dealing with the situation. Because if we accept the invitation into a low frequency emotion, then our energy is going to be drained, and then whatever the event or situation is will be even more challenging to us. So there's a real incentive in learning to decline the low frequency emotions, because it keeps our energy intact, and then the energy we have can actually be used to enhance our life experience. So if we're more energized, we're more stable, and there's more clarity, then we can actually utilize that energy for life to be progressive. And that's something which is it's available to everyone. And there's an ultimate flexibility really to be aware of, though, which is that because the human realm is transitory, we know that at some point we're going to have to say goodbye to the whole thing. And so the paradox is that to have the best human life, we really need to be totally committed to it. So it's to do with complete commitment in terms of love, compassion, commitment, clarity, and appreciation. So the high frequency emotions, need to be present to have the highest frequency experience. Then we're maximizing the opportunity we have. But then if at some point, then it becomes clear that the game is over in one way or another, then the flexibility is to be able to make the transition from total commitment to total acceptance. And if we know that that's actually required to be able to maintain stability, then that really makes a huge difference to the experience we're having, because it's a realistic approach to life. And also it's something which doesn't really take into account the sort of mainstream processing of experience, because the mainstream version of life is one where we all get really upset about everything. And, it's like this roller coaster where we just, one day we're up, one day we're down, something's delivered, we should all be really upset. And then it's Friday night, oh, it's great, we can all be happy again now. But if we just learn to create our own frequency, which is one of stability, then we're off that ride. And, for those who want to continue in that roller coaster version of experience, then that's always available. The roller coaster is always there, to be able to get, you can always get on that and have a little go if you want to. But actually, it's much more preferable, and life is far more expansive and evolutionary if we develop the ability to maintain stability.